Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We are convening a meeting of the Home Rule School District Charter Commission, which was appointed by the Dallas Independent School District trustees. Today is Monday, May 4th, 2015. We are beginning our meeting at approximately 6:03 in the boardroom at the Dallas Independent School District Central Administration Building located at 3700 Ross Avenue, Dallas, Texas, 75204. The subjects to be discussed or considered or upon which any formal action may be taken are listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown on this meeting notice and agenda. I am looking in the audience, so first thing, there is a reporter. You might be the entire audience. Thank you for coming, Ms. Hahn. We appreciate not being totally left out of the conversation in Dallas. And so, seeing no one else, let's have our quorum call. I'm going to start with Commissioner Freeman and work to my left.
Isaac Freeman, present.
Stephanie Elizalde, present.
Benita Reese, present. Julie Sandell, present.
Marcus Ranger, present.
Shirley Ison Newsom, present.
Ron Oliver, present.
Bob Weiss, present.
Jeff Veazey, present.
Kevin Melanson, present.
A quorum has been established, and we are ready to proceed with our agenda. The next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all stand and join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me just move to the minutes. They were sent to you via email. I'll entertain a motion to accept them, subject to any correction.
I move that the minutes for the meeting of April the 20th be accepted as printed. Second.
So, motion has been made by Commissioner Newsom, is seconded by Commissioner Sandell, that the minutes of April 20th be approved, subject to revision. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Motion carries unanimously. Let me tell you how we're going to do this meeting tonight. First, before we begin, I want to say, because we're sort of like family, and I'm going to be very, very concise tonight. I'll just give you that as a heads up. Commissioner Freeman, at this point I can call you Isaac, is finishing his master's degree, and we have watched him go through this during our entire journey, and in June he will graduate from Johns Hopkins with a Master's of Science in Education. And who says we haven't been together long enough? And I just think that's a marvelous accomplishment, and wanted to recognize Isaac and good stuff. So we're going to have a report from our governance subcommittee, and at that part I'm going to let Commissioner Newsom lead that. I have some procedural things as next step, and some just information sharing. Will not take long. As I mentioned at our last meeting, the procedural action administratively to postpone the last meeting, which means that given what we decided about June, tonight will probably be our last commission meeting. And under my remarks, it will take probably very, very concise, because I will just say everything I have said for almost a year has been said, and no need to repeat myself. So, having said that, I'm going to turn the next agenda item, at least to launch that conversation, on item number 4 with Commissioner Newsom.
Thank you, Chair. Let me preface my report and the presentation by members of the governance subcommittee by saying I want to thank the members of the subcommittee for their due diligence. Kevin Melanson served as co-chair, and I want to thank you, Kevin, for your outstanding work. Bob Weiss served as a member of the subcommittee, and I wish to thank him for his outstanding work. And Lou Blackburn also served as, Lou Blackburn Jr. also served as a member of the subcommittee. I want to thank him for his work. I also want to thank Jeff Veazey, who started out with us, but because of work commitments, could not finish the race with us. But while he was there, he made very important comments and input into this process, so I want to publicly thank him as well. As you know, the Home Rule Charter laws lists governance as one of the 5 areas that one needed to have considered in looking at a home rule. So let me pass these out. Marcus, if you take one and pass it there.
Okay.
Do you want to get one for the secretary as well as for those in the audience? That's yours. Pass it back.
Yeah, I've got mine. Here you go, Jeff.
Okay, Connell, did you need one?
Here's another.
We want to put one on.
Brother gentleman in the back one. Dino, if you would put the gentleman in the back as well. Thank you.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah, if Commissioner Garza, he said there's a probability he won't be here. He has to come up from Austin. He had to be down there for his job today, and I don't think he'll be here.
Okay. Let me also say, before I get into this report, that I'm requesting formally, Ms. Gully, that this be made a part of the official minutes. I want the full report as part of the official minutes. Thank you so much. Well, the following recommendations are submitted from the Governance Subcommittee of the Dallas Home Rule Charter Commission to the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees. These recommendations are based on input from groups, individuals, parents, and stakeholders received on the various hearings, meetings, and interviews. Giving voice to the constituents was an important part of that process, and it is that voice that we share with the Board of Trustees to give consideration to as the corporate body deems appropriate. We looked at 4 areas of recommendations on this subcommittee. The first area being the board level governance. The second one was central office governance. The third area was campus level governance. And the fourth area was student staff safety. Those areas are those which are listed in the law. Members of this subcommittee took the lead on researching all the minutes and all the information that we received from those various hearings and forums that input from the public at large. Bob Weiss took lead on the board level governance recommendations. Lou Blackburn Jr. took lead on the central office governance area, and if he's not here, I will present those. Kevin Melanson took lead on the campus level governance recommendations, and I kind of worked with all of them on each of the areas, but then I also did the student staff safety area. And so I would like at this time for Bob Weiss to walk you through the board level governance recommendations.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Eisen-Newson. She's being modest about how she helped us synthesize all this, so I don't want to claim total ownership, but I will say that this does reflect things I feel about that I learned in the course of our work here, listening to each of you and to all our public and the information that was submitted. And one of my biggest takeaways was this disconnect between the community broadly defined and what goes on here. And I certainly did not fully comprehend how I was personally disconnected until I got immersed in it. And you've been teaching me from TOMA, Texas Open Meeting Act, to early childhood education. And so in my private life and in my work career, transparency was a huge thing in the world of philanthropy and the not-for-profit sector. And I've tried to use the website here and understand how you get information. And I don't have access to portals. And so that this first recommendation is based on what I thought I heard throughout and what our subcommittee discussed are metrics that ought to be on one page with really objective data that the public can use. In our line of work before I retired, it was just called a dashboard, or just something with an icon that you can go to without a lot of, go to this site or go to Dr. Oakley's site and then look at the report and agree on, I think, the kind of metrics that get really talked about in the community. But if you're not an insider, quite frankly, it's hard to know really what it means. And so without beating this to death, you can see academic accountability data. We had stuff released. You don't really know what actually is going on. IR schools, to me, if you move the needle on those 43 schools or whatever that number is now, you're going to move the district forward, and I think the public ought to know about that. I was totally confused about graduation rates as to how that's defined, or college ready, and I think it would be helpful to have a dashboard that just defines and shows what a graduation rate is. This next thing about HR is something that's near to me, because in my youth, when I was more involved here, and you look at the SEI index, it was about substitutes, how often they were substituted, the ratio. Some of that is on-campus reports, but it's not aggregated. And I think, again, you hear this in the media, what's the term? Well, if you're in a company, you know what's going on with your employee base, especially if it's human capital driven. And that's your most important asset. So I think the public ought to know about that. And then again, I'm a closet numbers person. I'm a taxpayer. I just got my appraisal, so this one is really important about, a basic vendor report, a basic finance report, no different than what you would get to any board of a not-for-profit entity. And then I think we heard a lot about student discipline activity. All of this information that was, come on in, I'm taking pause, come on up. Let the record reflect Commissioner Blackburn has now joined us. Welcome. And so I wanted to be respectful, because I hadn't really focused in on the discipline issue, and we got a lot of that group from about positive discipline. Those of us who are on the Tom Dunning, Renee Martinez, Pettis Norman project, that had a large thing about discipline, and so it occurred to me in doing this that the community ought to know exactly what that is. There was proposed legislation about truancy, so that's the background. These were, I think, key metrics taxpayers, parents would want in an aggregate dashboard.
Easily accessible.
Easily, just up there for the public to see. And then, the rationale, I'm a big believer in transparency, because I believe transparency builds trust and engagement. It's a deeply held value of mine, and I think the committee supported me on that. I think ultimately, if you have that, people like myself would be willing to pay more for either capital or program if there was a reliable trust-building process. And I think it also makes the trustees and the superintendent more accountable. If you're not down here and all you see is what's in the public domain, it's hard to really understand what's going on. And I think the superintendent should have some, again, based on my career experience, monthly report where these data sets create a common understanding out in the public space. Not inside Ross Avenue, out in the public space. So I suggested a simple, kind of straightforward, implementation strategy you can look at. You don't need to go through that. So number 2 is, again, how do we connect the board, right, to the community? And back in the day, there used to be committees. Now I gather it's just an audit committee, and they meet as a committee of the whole. But if they were to come to using committees for policy development, financial strategy, academic accountability, just a governance committee, that what you could do was to include experts in an area, not to overwhelm the committee, but to be part of a board committee from the community, whether it was personnel or whatever the standing committees of the board would be, to give them a pool of people that are neutral. They don't have a point of view, but they can lend an expertise on government or public financing. I just try to spell out what the rationale is, because I think this is such a tough job to be a trustee in the public space, that to have resources to help you do your job better is not unimportant. And then I just laid out a cycle and how that could possibly work. And then the third one on the next page is, again, you can hear my underlying theme, is how do you connect a broader community? Now, this supposes that each board member still would represent a district, and so there would be district-wide advisory boards building up from site-based management. Again, how do you build community schools, community ownership, community involvement, and constantly support and give feedback to your trustee. If you're a congressman, you have a committee to screen Annapolis or military academy candidates. I mean, this is not a brand new idea, but I think, again, that the more we heard, the more it struck me that people were searching for a way to have conversation in a forum in a regular ongoing basis with their elected trustee beyond the election cycle and beyond the crisis of the moment. And so that was the evolution of that. And number 4, this might be a little sensitive, but I did go back and look what was submitted and what that whole part of our cycle on SOPS is in listening to trustees. What is it that makes this job so difficult? If you're here for a short period of time, I do believe it takes a while to even understand all the policies, EEBO, EBOA, EB12, and I think it takes a while to get up to speed. So my thinking here was to extend the term, and not unlike the mayor, that's where it came from. You have 2 8-year terms. It could be 5 and 5. The numbers aren't magical. It's just that at 3, you're at a disadvantage if you're new and you have to go up to speed and you have strong staff leadership and you have the community has expectations. Your volunteer leadership as a trustee has to go through a learning curve, and then you can be, I think, really engaged in setting direction. So, the underlying thinking here for me was to have connection and to have transparency. And that was something, and I went through every document, everything we posted online, and tried to extrapolate, something that resonated through these 10 months for me, almost 11 months now. And that was it. So that was my deal. Shirley was a great coach in this, so was Kevin, and everyone, kind of pushed and pulled. And so that's what I asked to have in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiss. Mr. Melanson, anything to add to the first governance 1 recommendation?
Nothing to add, just that I like how Commissioner Weiss made the connection with the transparency and the people piece. I think that's a theme you're going to commonly see throughout all our recommendations. So, if it's not noticed, I'm going to just go and point it out.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blackburn, anything to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments on recommendation 1? Yes, Ms. Sandell.
I thought that I had heard that the current legislature is considering changing the 3-year to 4-year, that's been broached in committee to deal with the Dallas trustees. I think that Mr. Garza sent me some information about that, so I think it's being discussed in Austin. So for us to there's someone for us to talk to about that down there.
Sure, I appreciate that. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, so if we talk to Mr. Garza, he knows what's going on with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, anything? I'm good. Ms. Elizada? Mr. Freeman? Okay, make sure everybody has an opportunity. Mr. Veazey? Ms. Dahlberger?
Oh, excellent. I just wish it was about 3 inches thicker. Just teasing.
And I was trying to be concise tonight, so have at it. It's your last chance to beat up the chair.
Councilman Ranger, Mr. Ranger.
Representative Machia proposed a deal, and one of those recommendations would be 4-year term, as well as several other things. However, since I have not read this previously, it's very clear that the committee worked very hard in terms of reviewing different things that you might be interested in. I'm not clear about how we're going to proceed here on this, but if we're asking just for general comments, is that where we're...
I'm asking for general comments on governance area 1, and at the end of all of the presentations, so we can talk about whether we proceed and how we proceed.
There are very serious issues about changing the terms, and so I would have not only concerns about that, but this is not the time to go into it, but just a general concern.
Sure, so noted.
I just expressed that.
Okay.
We have visited this several times in the past, but anyway, ultimately it's going to be in the hands of the citizens of Dallas if things pass and all this type of thing. So anyway, but I'm not really familiar with the other parts of this, but you're on part 1.
Yes.
Recommendation 1, right? I have some concerns about 4-year terms.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Weiss, you want to say
No,
about that?
I appreciate the feedback, and
Okay.
so concise is my word today.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move to Governance Area 2 recommendations, central office governance. Mr. Blackburn Jr., walk us through those.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Isom Newsom and Chairman Weiss, and so to the other commissioners. So looking at Governance Area 2, we were discussing central office governance, and so we kind of go inside the circle from the board to central office before getting to the campus level. There are 6 recommendations from the committee. Number 1, raising the minimum wage of employees and contractors to $10 an hour, as well as having some type of guidance as far as requiring our vendors to also have a minimum wage of at least $10 per hour. And there are a number of ways that can be done. We didn't go into details of how, where, when, and so forth, but this comes out of discussion that we had and the presentation that was given to us in terms of not just looking at what this would do for Dallas ISD, but also looking at what it does for the Dallas community as a whole. And that's where that comes in, that we are helping the citizenry, helping the community by increasing the minimum wage, giving people more of a livable wage, particularly those who are employed by Dallas ISD. Recommendation 2, creating a system of regular monthly reports for district and campuses. And that goes towards the transparency that Commissioner Weiss mentioned in the board level recommendations. If we have those reports, and this also comes out, I should say, from the reports that we heard of from Dallas Achieves organization, that they had also recommended some reports, some that had started but were discontinued a number of years ago. But this goes into increasing, as Commissioner Weiss said, that trust of not only citizens but also all constituents, so whether it's business people in the area, the employees, if they know what's going on, and if they know how things are being measured, how things are being tracked, then they're more apt to believe in Dallas ISD. I think we lose a lot of that, is that people don't believe what's going on at Dallas ISD and don't believe the improvements. If we're not improving, then the reports also show us areas of concern that we can address, or that the district can address. Recommendation 3, implementing a service management system to make information and services easier to access for campuses and the community. And this is a broader service management system just to help the constituents, whether it be parents, the community who need to get information from the district, but also we've heard reports of employees within the district, campus level employees, who can't always get the services or don't always get follow-up on services that they need from the district level. And this would assist in that as well. So it's a broader level system. That's not to say the district is not doing a good job or improving in some ways. I think our current communications is improving, but there are still strides to take. Recommendation 4, making campus improvement plans public and provide ways to share best practices between campuses. There does not really seem to be an easy way that that's happening right now. We have some campuses that are doing well. We don't always know why, but more importantly, I think if we take those campus improvement plans, and it's not just a measure of did the principal get this done, or is the principal trying to improve things, but how is the community doing? How is that campus community improving? And right now, I don't believe that all of our campus communities are aware of what needs to be done to improve a particular campus, or what are the plans to improve a particular campus. So we're interested in the district finding ways to make those plans available and more public. I think not just public in terms of awareness, but also public in terms of participation. Recommendation 5, establish an administrative policy to provide for a mandatory 1 semester per year community service requirement for high school students in grades 10, 11, 12. And recommendation is for 1 half day per week. And that goes to not simply creating academic automatons, I guess you could say, but we want the district to produce citizens who are going to be productive citizens and caring citizens even after they leave Dallas ISD. And that experience of providing community service goes beyond their high school career or beyond their public school career. And then recommendation 6, reduce the number of central office administrators and staff assigned to oversight responsibility for campuses, and increase the authority of principals to manage and make decisions for their respective campuses. And so this is giving more autonomy to the campus level principals and reducing some of the overhead that the district may be paying for, as well as reducing the bureaucracy that exists in the central office level administration, and kind of taking some of that responsibility and putting it back on the campus level, putting responsibility back on the principals, but also giving them the resources and the thank you.
Thanks.
There's a word that I need, but I guess giving them the authority that they need, the campus level principals need, in order to fulfill more of the things that they need to do for their campus and for their local community.
We'll take a moment. Commissioner Gutierrez, you want to just state your name for the record, that you're
Danae
present?
Gutierrez, District 8.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Commissioner Melanson, anything to add to his report?
No comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss?
No, it's good.
Okay, I just want to make just one comment, the one on the community service for the students. Part of that grew out of Board Trustee Mishke's recommendation for trying to find enough volunteers to do early childhood reading. And clearly, that could be one of the community service projects for our students and within their feeder pattern. And you have any number that are already built in, so I did want to make a comment on that. Okay, the floor is now open for comments, reactions to governance recommendation number 2. And I'll start with Ms. Sandell, who is anxious to jump in.
No, I think recommendation 5 is great. We need to figure out how to do that so the students still get all the credits that they need. Will it be is it a local credit? Is there some kind of class we can set up so that they're not left with semesters they haven't finished? Because I think it's great, but there needs to be some sort of programmatic put in there that I think that's great.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. Local credit can be given. Almost every parochial or private school has a community service semester for their students, and they typically give them 1/2 credit for that semester, and certainly the administration can find a way to do that. Okay. Yeah, but I would agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. And local credit can be given for community service hours. Yeah. Yes. Ms. Reese, comments? Elizade? Freeman? Mr. Visa hadn't come to you yet. Mr. Visa, okay. Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
Yeah, number 6. Yes, I like this. If you're going to, am I looking at the right one, or am I hitting myself? Okay. Number 6. If you're going to hold someone accountable, we have to let them run the operation. Bottom line, I mean, how can you let someone take the blame for something they really have no control of? And so, I'm a big believer in recommendation number 6, because it's, I love this little rationale. It's very folksy, but the truth is, I think if you've got the right person in the right position and you put them there, then they either are going to succeed or fail on their own. And if you mess around and get in there and you consider it supporting them, but in essence you're destroying them, you're almost setting them up for failure. So 6, I'm in for it extremely. And also this echoing of transparency, big thing. I love it. You can never be transparent enough. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Ranger?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. I would want to just add a footnote to recommendation 6. Part of that grew out of our discussions and our belief that the SPDM, which is in law, needs to be fully activated. And along with SPDM, it becomes a stronger role for the principalship. And so it all kind of goes hand in hand. Okay, thank you all. Let's move on then to the recommendation governance area number 3, campus level governance. Mr. Melanson.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I think continuing this theme, and Commissioner Oliver, thank you for saying what you said. You're going to see a lot more of that synergy as we walk through these campus level governance recommendations. I want to thank the chair of our subcommittee, Commissioner Ison Newsom. You helped me walk through this much better than I didn't see the value in the process until you walked me through it, so I really appreciate it. I think it shows in our product, so I'm happy to be a part of that team. Thank you to the rest of the folks. Obviously, we spent a lot of time doing this. So my recommendations will be relatively quick because we've heard a lot of this before. Recommendation 1 is fully implement an SBDM for each DISD campus with the full authority as outlined in the statute. I mean, we heard tons of people mention this throughout our time out in the community. It's come up over and over again. And so I definitely want to make that a part of this section. Recommendation number 2 really hits with the district level, or it jives rather, and that is define explicitly the areas which principals have final authority on their campus: personnel, budget expenditures, and program design. Those are the big level issues that the principal needs to be the final authority on, and I think that'll help the campuses run smoother. Number 3, commit to a robust, authentic, and quantifiable public, and I'm talking about taxpayers in the attendance boundary, parents and teachers, public participation and selection and evaluation of principal. We constantly hear that an effective principal is important for a campus to run smoothly. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think where we see a lot of hiccups and adult arguments over these days is how to define effective. I think there is a place for the community, a school community, in that conversation. And so this recommendation, while honestly, I wrote it, so and I do think it's relatively vague, but if you piggyback on the district advisory committee that we were talking about earlier, you piggyback on the SBDM, there are mechanisms that are already in statute or that certainly could be adopted to easily make this process work. Some of the factors that people have mentioned, when I say people, I listen to the folks that we saw out in public. I talked to a lot of principals, ex-principals, DISD principals, not non-DISD principals, and they were really behind recommendation number 2. But in recommendation number 3, you'll see there some of the factors that they listed as being important when selecting a leader for the school: education experience, special program or curriculum experience, management philosophy, community buy-in, fit with community, and those are different, and vision for the future of that campus. So that's board level. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to work on
Campus level.
Campus level, thank you.
Oh, campus level, I'm sorry.
The Jackson
Feeling your
board.
thunder right there. It does jive though, Shirley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Melanson. Mr. Weiss, any additional comments on the campus
No, I
level
think
governance
it's-
recommendations?
That's full.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn.
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, then we'll start with Mr. Freeman. Any feedback or comments?
So far, I haven't heard anything that I disagree with.
All right, well, thank you, that's good, that's a good thing, thank you. Ms. Elizalde?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reese?
No,
Thank you. Ms. Sandell?
no comments.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
I have a question. Where you put recommendation number 2, budget expenditures, would that include also leveling? Because that's what I see a lot in the schools, especially the ones that are IR, where leveling is not within the, decision-making of the
Yeah.
principal. So
No,
would that
that-
also be included, or would that still be?
Yeah, the principal can't control how many kids show up in the first day or the 12th day of school. So no, I don't think they're going to be given a pot of money ultimately. That's after the 12th day or whatever day they count, and then go from there. I don't think they should have anything to do with the leveling. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I would comment that once leveling is done, the money needs to follow.
Right.
As well as the personnel for whatever kids end up on their campus.
Well, my issue with the leveling process is that sometimes the principals are left having to put, oh my God, let me put this teacher over here, this one over here, and they're having to move everything around. And the kids are going, what's going on in my school? Why do I have a teacher that, maybe has never taught their grade? So I think it should be important that the principal should be able to decide, do I need leveling or not? If I have 17 or 18, 20 students per teacher, why do I need to make it 25? You know what I'm saying? That was my question.
Yeah. It's numbers driven, yeah, but you're right on that. Mr. Ranger?
No.
Okay, thank you. Did I get you?
Yeah.
Ms. Oliver? Sorry.
I like the idea of
Okay,
transparency, that's how they,
Okay, thank you. Mr. Beasley, any comments? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Melanson. Then we will go to Governance Area Recommendation 4, the really long one. The fourth area in the law looked at student and staff safety. And as we toss that around, we really think the district overall has excellent procedures, and we really didn't hear anything major from the field. I think the one was about how to get a crossing guard, and again, that comes to transparency and having information available to parents in a more timely and in a way that is easily accessible. But one of the things that we talked about from what we were hearing is that we've got to begin looking at the whole child and what the needs of the children are. This district does have family and youth centers. It is our recommendation that they seek funding to increase those so that more kids can have access and more families can have access to those services. And as this student body of the Dallas Independent School District continues to grow as an impoverished student body, taking care of our children's health and welfare becomes even more critical to their welfare, but also to how well they would do academically. So there's a recommendation, one of Governance Area 4, that we increase the number of family and youth centers that are available to the students of this district. Ms. Melanson, anything to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Weiss?
No, I think it's an important recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Blackburn, anything to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, feedback, Mr. Ranger? Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
I've had issues, actually, a lot of the PTAs have had issues this year with a couple of the risk management policies that they've been, I don't know what they're called, their policies or whatever you call it when they write it in. So for example, and this is going to sound really silly to y'all, but it's not for the kids, we're not allowed to use bounce houses anymore. Nobody ever found out.
Not to use what?
Bounce houses, the
Or
for recreation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds really silly, but the point is that we didn't know about it, so it goes back to what Commissioner Oliver is saying, transparency. They should at least call everybody that is included, be like, hey, we're gonna add something for the safety of the kids. What's your feedback? So I was looking to a lot of the stuff of risk management, and I was like, when was this implemented? How come we didn't know about it, And give our 2 cents. I know it sounds really silly because it's bounce houses,
No, it doesn't
but,
sound silly.
things
like the issue of
like,
transparency.
yes. So I think it's really important that when it has to do with the safety of our munchkins, parents also should have input in it,
Real quickly, I think from now on, all principals are going to say, no, you can't have a bounce house because Commissioner Gutierrez said we couldn't.
We should be able to.
Her point is that they should be able to. Risk management says that they can't because of the liability to the district. Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandell?
I actually have incredible access to youth and family. I'm the 504 and the SST chair. I have been for 12 years at my school, so I send kids for counseling. At the moment, if we have extreme emergencies, parents won't take them, they can't get there, we can get youth and family people to come to our school. They're actually connected to Conrad, but it's very difficult. If we had more youth and family centers, my husband works at Woodrow, there's one right there in the parking lot, we wouldn't have to worry about mom can't get off, we can't do this, blah, 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 and there's all kinds of things they can do. They can get glasses for the kids. They can send them to a dentist. The Parkland people are awesome, and youth and family is great, but they don't have the personnel to come to us even once a week to see people. So if we had more of them, we wouldn't have kids not getting services because somebody either couldn't or wouldn't take them there. So I would love to see that really, really expanded
Yeah.
because it's a great program.
Yeah, that was our thinking in our discussion, is accessibility for parents is very important. And when you're talking about a district that's growing in poverty, parents having to go across town or to get to one, it's much better if it's situated in the neighborhood. So
Well, and they have a difficult time having Spanish-speaking counselors. So if we could do something to increase that, my Spanish-speaking kids and families have such long waits before they can see anybody.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reese?
Just piggybacking on Julie, because for us, I think the nearest one is, I had a parent, we actually had to make some arrangements because she couldn't get over to Wilbur Hutchins High School. So having them more easily accessible would certainly help.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Elizalde?
No comment.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman?
Comment?
Thank you. Mr. Beasley?
No comment.
And Mr. Oliver?
No, just, it's great, it's a great suggestion because the statistics prove that poverty is increasing extremely fast. Anything that would help the students would be a benefit to the district and to the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weiss, final comments from me then. Again, I want to thank members of the committee for their work and the time that they put into this committee, because I think we were meeting quite often, quite long, and folks really did put in the time and thought to go through all of the recommendations. Again, for the subcommittee, the most important thing was to give voice to the folks who came to us and had concerns and wishes and wants, and we think that there ought to be a process and a way that is made known to those who can make a difference. And I would want to underscore again that we're asking that these recommendations go to the Board of Trustees for their consideration as a corporate body, for their consideration only. Mr. Weiss, Mr. Chair, having said that, I move that these recommendations be moved forward to presentation to the Board of Trustees of the Dallas Independent School District.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's moved by Subcommittee Chair Isa Newsom, seconded by, Commissioner Sandell. So we're, floor is open for discussion. Just raise your hand. Yes.
In terms of the procedure of the board, could you clarify for me, at our last meeting, we had some discussion that I don't remember all of the aspects of it about what our position would be. And I believe there were 4 subcommittees that were established. And we have not heard from all of these subcommittees, have we?
No, okay, when you're done, I'll be happy to respond.
Okay, but where I'm going with that is, we never established a procedure whereby we would bring things to the board for consideration of adoption. Now, what I mean by that is, we had the discussion on, I believe it was education.
Right.
And it was a very extensive presentation. And I think I've forgotten at the end exactly what the specific result of that discussion was, but I made some comments, but we did attempt to express the notion that perhaps it was not a good idea to try to present voluminous recommendations to the board. Did we not take action on that at that time? Or did we not?
No, so let me answer the first one too. The other 2 committees, one, budget never met, visited with Edwin and had nothing to bring forward, and the same with the accountability. And so there were no reports. We just could not advance that conversation. So we had 2, education, as you pointed out, and tonight the governance conversation. And in the education discussion, I think your recollection was right. There was a list of items, and we decided not to prioritize or pick and choose, and I got entangled over early childhood, but there was a variety of items, and we agreed just to post the document like we've done with all the other documents up on the website. And so this is the second committee report, and we need to resolve how we're going to do that. So, but I was going to discuss in the next item, where do we go from here? But we're at that point. At a minimum, all the record that we have established, which is where we came down, I think, in our April 20th conversation, is going to be online for 6 years as required, and it will have an active website, and we can help the public understand where to go and access that information. It's neither an endorsement or not. It would have the SOPS. It would have everything we've heard that's up there, including our report. And so I think that's how we left this. This is a motion to carve this out specifically that we can vote up or down tonight about whether to specifically submit and forward this set. The website will still be there, and while I'm on the subject, the link between the DISD's website, are we fixed? Okay, as of this afternoon, that link was broken, but I'm getting a wave back there that it's now been done, and so that will be up. And then the last item I had under next steps that was unclear to me, it was whether, and you had given me as a group a mixed message, whether to actually go visit with the board on the 28th and just tell them we're done and here's something, or just send a letter saying we're done, here's the website, whatever we're going to attach, and and turn it over to them. So that's trying to give you some context in response to the questions you were asking. So there's a motion on the floor.
We're saying that the Education Committee report will simply be posted on the website.
Mm-hmm.
It has not been any determination that would go forward to the board. It's going to be a report.
Part of the public record.
Part
of our public record.
Part of our public record. Well, because I don't remember precisely, but I got the impression that was the direction we were going in with all of the committees. We're now having a motion before us to do just the opposite. We're back to the suggestion that we basically recommend this report, which we've never discussed before. And there's quite a bit of work, I'm sure, that this reflects, and some good thoughts and good recommendations. But it's never been before the board, before the commission before. And I would think that in order to be consistent, if we're going to post the Education Committee, and we did make that decision, that we would take the same approach here and really post this as well. Now, the motion as it is, I could make an attempt to amend the motion, of course. I don't really want to do that. But I'll just discuss it from this perspective. I'm categorically against this, for the same reasons as previously. Now, I won't take a long time, but basically it just boils down to this. This commission, I believe, was established to do one thing. It was not established to be a recommender. It was established to be a decider. And the issue was quite simple. Shall we have a home rule commission or not? And we made that decision on January 20th or 15th or whatever it was. Honorably, we made that decision. Now, converting this now to governance recommendations to the board, once again raises the same issue. And I don't agree that this commission should do that. I would recommend we not do that, and if necessary, I will make an amendment to post it as we said we would post the Education Committee. I don't know how we would make that distinction. The Education Committee would be posted, but this one would be a recommendation to the board.
I would just say, after we're done discussing it, we'll take a vote. It's not mutually exclusive, so if the motion to carve it out, if I might put it that way, fails, it's still going to get part of the record and part of our official minutes. That's independent of whatever we would decide in this particular motion.
Well, no, but I would like to finish my thought. On the issue of the 4-year terms, that has been a matter of substantial controversy in the past. We've never even discussed that from the standpoint of the implications of that. There are many very serious implications of that one recommendation, as an example, which has just been presented to us this evening, and we have not discussed that at length, and so that we understand all of the implications of that recommendation. So I'm just, I would be opposed to this suggestion to refer this to the board as a recommendation. I would be very much in favor, of course, doing the same
Sure.
thing as we did with
Okay.
education.
Let me hear from other commissioners. Commissioner Eisenhusen?
Yes. I was out of the country at the last meeting when the decision was made to really post the education recommendations. And just a question process, and can we reconsider that this evening if we wanted to go forward with the 28th meeting with the chair presenting recommendations to the board? Is it possible to reconsider bringing forward the education ones? Let me, if I can finish. Because I do think there is merit in face-to-face presentation, so if people have questions, you can't question a piece of paper, nor can you get clarification from a piece of paper. So are we within our rights as a body if the majority agrees to reconsider that? As I said, I was not here, so I didn't hear all the
sure.
conversation.
So,
Thank you.
and I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's okay.
Okay, so I would hold that as chair to reconsider and just continue on with this discussion to give
Okay.
each commissioner a chance to
Point of order.
opine.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you,
sir.
sir.
For the chair's consideration, this is not posted for a decision.
Right.
This is posted for discussion. So my point of order would be that this is out of order. The motion is out of order because we're posted for a discussion of the subcommittee recommendations, not for action.
Chair recognizes that. I've just looked, is this an item that, it's not, we have posted our action items, so I understand what you're saying is a Texas Open Meeting Act point of information. Let me reflect on that, and before we vote, I just want to hear what everyone has to say, because that could be moot. Commissioner Eisenhusen.
No, I was just going to say, the motion is still within order. If not at this meeting, we can make it an action item at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what I'd like, before we call for a vote, we've heard from two commissioners. Does anyone want to,
What's the motion again?
okay, the motion is to move these particular recommendations forward to the board as a set of recommendations. The point has been raised whether under our current process, could we vote tonight under TOMA or defer this to the 18th? There's an item on the agenda to cancel the meeting on the 18th. So at a minimum, this report goes into the record. Doesn't preclude me. I still have a standing invitation on May 28th, which I shared with you, though I haven't reconfirmed that, to explain what we've done, in which these can be brought forward in helping people understand what's out there and online. But I'm interested to hear from everyone who wants to speak to this, and I can ask the maker of the motion to withdraw it. We can rule that we can defer it, which will change what's left on the agenda. So if you will just give me some guidance, I'll go around. Commissioner Sandell, the chair.
I am not a Robert's Rule of Order person. If we can approve it now, that's what I want to do. If we cannot, I want to have another meeting so that we can vote on it then. I am very much in favor of this going to the board. If it requires us to have another meeting, that's fine with me.
Okay. Yeah, we've tabled that 18th decision from the 20th, and again, I told you I'd put it on the agenda, but again, it's the will of the body. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, is it your intention to present on May 28th?
well, at the one time we discussed that, I was, I think, encouraged by everyone to go do that, and that was my intention. I was going to re-raise it tonight under next steps, just to be clear that we were still in agreement that that's what I would do, and that meeting hasn't been posted, and I'd have to, work out, a final agreement, but that's my understanding at the moment.
Well, I'm not sure. I hope I wouldn't be out of order in suggesting that a vote on this isn't really necessary for you to present it to the board. Not as recommendations of the body as a whole, perhaps, but as things that we discussed and we're all very serious about. And I don't know if that's a way to proceed or not. I'm not sure. I believe Mr. Ranger makes a pretty good point about where we are for this meeting. But I'd like to see it taken to the board regardless. And I think that it probably doesn't require a vote.
Okay.
It's an expression of a committee, and I think as the head honcho of this deal, you have the authority to speak to our work here, and those recommendations all in some way reflect the opinion of many people here.
I agree.
Let me just see if there's someone else. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner.
my issue revolves around the other subcommittees. And so, as I remember it, when we had the education discussion, it was a pretty long discussion. And it was difficult for us to bring those recommendations down into something more concise.
Right.
This is a concise form, that I like. I'm concerned that we're not going to have anything about budget. We're not going to have anything about data and accountability if we present those recommendations. That's bothersome to me. And I mean, basically, some people bought into the subcommittee roles and other folks didn't. So now here we have possibly 2 or 4 areas covered. It could be okay. I mean, that's just I'll hold my thought on that. Who is next? Who hasn't spoken? Commissioner.
Okay, as far as the education subcommittee, I think we discussed, and I think it came out within, I guess our last 2 discussions, 2 times we met, that many of the ideas that we had actually shared with the community, parents, students throughout the schools, the district has actually implemented. So I felt like it was not really it wasn't a service to actually bring them, because we talked about the fact that many of these ideas, many of these specific ideas for community schools, choice schools, the many things that the parents have brought out and asked for, it must be a good year because they're happening. So I think that's why I felt as a subcommittee, the education subcommittee, I didn't think that it would actually be as much of a benefit. The governance seems to be a hot point. A lot of criticism, a lot of lack of transparency. Every school's run a little differently, and no one knows why. And so I think that this kind of falls in a different realm. Whether it's presented by Commissioner or Chairman Weiss or however we do it, it needs to be presented. And all the other ideas need to be shared just like they are in the website. And I don't see anything wrong with, giving these recommendations. If it helps the students, and I'm going to get down to the very, very basics, it's primal. Anything we can do to help the achievement of the students in this district is worth doing. And if somebody wants to slap our hand because we're doing it, that's fine. I mean, we need to do it and not think a lot about it, because at the end of the day, we're not criticizing anyone. We're not holding anybody accountable for the actions before the commission. We're just saying that this is what we heard. We went out and listened, and these are the recommendations that the individuals that we sought action from, the parents, the community, and those involved in the school district. This is what they wanted. And I think it's basically that simple.
Commissioner Elzadi.
So I respectfully understand the thoughts, and I also respectfully disagree. I don't see it as we're doing this for or against the students. I certainly understand where doing this for them could be part of someone's thinking and schema. I do think the more I listen, the more we're straying from what our role was supposed to be. And anybody can go to any board meeting and make recommendations at any given time. Now, obviously, as a board, as a body, whatever the vote is, is representative of the group of us, and absolutely can support that. But up until that point, I think it becomes more about what some of us may individually be. Sometimes I'm not sure whether it's truly a representation of, I mean, we didn't do analysis of how many times did I hear this or how many times did I hear that. Was it the same group of people? Did we have truly a general representation? Now, those are the people that took the time, again, and I'm not intending to be argumentative in any shape or form. I have known to be that way, but that's not today. And it's hard. It's not something easy that I'm actually thinking this way. It actually goes against wanting to speak my opinion. Again, shocking the group that I would have an opinion, but that was a little humor, apparently, very little. But in terms of following the way I interpret, and while I'm not a lawyer, I consider myself that I have some experiences in interpretation myself, and I value that we can respectfully disagree and not read in purposes that individuals have simply because we disagree or see things from a different perspective. What I would ask the group is not to think for me, as I won't think for anyone either. I think we're muddying the waters. I think it was a clear-cut assignment. It's not about whether I like it or dislike it. For me, it's about following. All of this is public record. So if our board, who is an elected body, we were selected, but we weren't elected. If an elected body is interested in what we collected, then I think they have the responsibility to go and check the record, rather than us having this will that we're going to impose. And again, it's not about I can't see the different perspectives. I certainly can, but I also felt a need to express my perspective.
Sure. Just first round, anyone who hasn't spoken? Commissioner Gutierrez?
I'm gonna have to agree with Ms. Alisande on this one. You know, I think we decided not to take action on anything the day we decided not to vote on the charter. So they can very well see what we're doing if they're interested, if they're following what we're talking about. So just post it on the website and see if they look at it.
Okay. Commissioner Blackburn?
Sure. I think that I'll go back to some of our earlier discussions in reading through the law as presented in the Texas Education Code, and then putting this body together. It was instructed to the trustees to select people who would write a charter. And so we interpreted the silence of the law by saying, you know, we don't have to. It doesn't say that we have to. And I think that with that allowance for us to do that, then that kind of gave us the added allowance that we took to write the recommendations, which is something on which we voted for the same night that we said we would. I think in you discussing with the president of the board, in effect discussing with the board, there was an agreement between our commission and the board of trustees that we would present recommendations and that they would listen to those recommendations. I agree with Commissioner Vesey in that if we cannot vote on it, then you do have the leeway to still make those recommendations, because that's what we've discussed prior to now. And if these are the recommendations that we have, these are the recommendations that we have. I don't think at any point in our discussions, in fact, as the 4 subcommittees were created and decided upon early in our process, I don't think any time after our January vote did we determine exactly how the subcommittees would operate and present their recommendations at that time. However, because we did say, or our body did agree that we would make recommendations, it was kind of up to the subcommittees at that time if, I guess, how they would make those recommendations. And just like our commission in general, since we didn't say that they had to make recommendations, and just like we didn't say that, or the law doesn't say we have to write a charter, we don't necessarily have to hold those subcommittees to participating in the recommendations. And I think if any of our commissioners have individual recommendations in the areas of accountability or finance and budget and so forth, then we're definitely open to that. However, we haven't had that. So I'm okay if we decide that these are the only recommendations that we have. I think in agreeing with Commissioner Oliver from his recommendations, even in his opening last month, that, or in our last meeting, that there weren't necessarily specific recommendations in there because the district is making some strides. The district as well as state legislature, they are making some strides toward a lot of things that were in the document that he had proposed. So even if we just say, Commissioner Weiss, here are our recommendations, do with it what you may, I for one am open to that because even at that point, there are a few implications. In fact, there are never any hard implications to what we do. There's always some other level of approval. So if we approve the charter, the public would still have to vote yes or no for it. If we approve recommendations, the Board of Trustees still have to vote yes or no on their actions. We're only making recommendations. And after that, they will continue the research of whatever needs to be done before they take any final actions on it. But that's my thought on it, and I'm good.
Okay. Let me, do we want to do a second round before I?
This isn't a second round.
Okay, it's a
I wanted
question.
to elucidate for why the Accountability Committee doesn't have anything for us.
You're recognized.
Okay. We decided the accountability would focus on what we consider to be the excessive testing. And so we had people speak to us, and Mr. Garza and I fought our way through the reads, and it seemed as if every time we wanted to talk about excessive testing, we kept being told TEI. It's required for TEI. And we never could kind of get a hold of the grasp that TEI was created by somebody, and it required that, but it wasn't there. We could never get any kind of information except that all this stuff is required by TEI, which was someone's creation, which we weren't allowed to mess with. And so we just kind of, there was not much we could do. We couldn't get into why is the testing, because we had, TEI was what we kept hearing, and that wasn't something we could mess with. So that's why there's no accountability stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate your putting that on the record. Again, I appreciate all the comments tonight, so let me I'm sorry, yes, you're to be recognized.
First of all, we have a point of order on the floor. Second, it is not optional for this board to operate any other way than by majority decision on decisions that we make. I believe that it is consistent with our statutory responsibility to place anything that has been developed by the commission in the official record of the commission, and that official record can be posted and it can even be conveyed to the board. Conveyed meaning simply, here board, this is what we did. This is the complete record. They can do what they wish with it, but that's not our recommending anything.
Right, I understand your point.
And that's the difference. So that would be the approach that I think would be appropriate for the commission to take. As for this motion, I have not the slightest doubt in my mind it's out of order for this meeting because we have no such thing posted for action. And the point of order was not intended to discourage the merit of any suggestion that is being made. It is simply the fact of the matter that we're not properly able to even address this evening. But even so, I'm saying it would really help. I heard Trustee Mishke the last meeting, and he suggested that we make one recommendation, and that is not being discussed. Now, at the time he made that, and I strike that. No, I don't want to go down that road. I'll just leave that.
Yeah, I understand. Let me,
You know what I'm talking about.
yeah, in fact, I'm going to get his comments out so that we can officially, though he read them in, he sent them to us. So I was going to get to that.
But with the chair rule on.
Yeah, I am. And so the way I'm going to do this, I think I heard the maker of the motion willing to withdraw your motion or?
No, you
or
did not hear the maker of the motion.
Okay, I
say that
just,
at all.
I thought you mentioned something about May 18th, so.
No,
so-
what I was saying is that the vote to take the recommendations forward can go on to the
Okay.
18th meeting.
Right, so
So I'm asked, I will amend my motion to ask that, let me amend the motion, that the recommendations from the governance subcommittee be forwarded to the board after a vote of this body at its next meeting on May 18th, when appropriate action may be taken.
All right, so we had to withdraw the motion on the floor. Who was the second on that? I think you were, Commissioner Sandell.
Are you
Are
seconding my
you,
amendment?
no, are you we're withdrawing the motion on the floor?
I
You're
second
agreement
the
with that?
withdrawal. I
Okay,
second her
so there's a
motion.
motion now to move the
Action
restated.
on, yes, I move that on the May 18th meeting, 2015, that the governance subcommittee recommendations be taken up for action to move forward to the Dallas Independent
Is
School
there-
District Board of
Is
Trustees.
there a second? for
Second.
that motion? Okay.
I have a question.
Commissioner
for
Freeman,
information. Because there's also, on the administrative action items, considering approval of canceling the May 18th meeting. So if
Right.
we're putting something on the agenda for May 18th, does that mean that we can no longer consider the cancellation of the May 18th meeting? I'm just trying to clarify. That wasn't like me saying,
No, because it creates a conflict on the
Okay.
agenda. So if this were to pass, then obviously,
so in other words, we don't even need to consider the other
I
motion
would-
if this one
He would
passes.
pull it.
like that's what I would pull it like I did on the 20th.
Okay.
So, any discussion on moving, because then on the 18th, if we do meet, we would have this discussion, vote it up or down, and then regardless, it's going into the public record, it's going to be on the website for 6 years, and I think I've heard you, when I talk to the board, make sure that all the highlights and what is up there, make sure it's up there on the big screen during the meeting, and tell them to go look, and there's a rich body of information. So there's a motion on the floor. Does anyone want to speak to it? I think the first motion, Commissioner Blackman.
I hate getting into the confusion of this, but I think that if we can't vote on the recommendations, then I don't think we can vote to put them on the next meeting agenda. We just simply don't do anything.
Right, so if that is your sense, all right, and again, there's a point of, wait, hang on a minute. There's, there is the point whether we have the right to vote for those or not. That is what you're asking. So why even move it if it can't happen in the first place? Is that the sense?
No, not so much why move it, but that we can't vote to move it. That if
No, I'm telling you, it's a sense of the committee to post it. You're saying we can't vote to move it to the agenda? Is that a procedural question?
I think so.
Okay. Commissioner Eisen.
Yes, I would make note that we do not have an official parliamentarian, and we're making all these parliamentary observations as though we have an official parliamentarian. And, Mr. Chair, I think that you, as chair, have the authority to make some decisions, but do we have no official parliamentarian?
I'm going to,
I got my copy of Robert's Rules.
I've got mine here, so.
Okay.
Chairman Weiss, I acknowledge I could be totally wrong.
Right, so, okay, so,
I'd like to speak to that.
yeah, okay, before I comment. Anyone else? Commissioner
I'd
Ranger?
like to speak to that. It is true we don't have the official parliamentarian, but any member of this body, recognizing Robert's Rules of Order, can raise a point under Robert's Rules of
Sure,
Order.
no,
So that is just common practice.
Yeah.
Now, Commissioner Blackman is absolutely correct. It is out of order to make such a motion because the original motion itself is out of order. Therefore, it's an opinion. Both of them are out of order. But I hope we didn't get bogged down in this.
No, we're not.
We can move on with a simple ruling that the original thing is out of order, and let's move on with the agenda here. because neither one of them posted for such action. And
I could ask him to say it.
one really builds on the other, and that is an opinion. But I think Robert's Rules of Order is pretty clear. It's not posted for action, so the original motion, the original discussion of that, the original motion rather to take action on it is out of order, and therefore the follow-up motion is also.
Yeah.
I think you just need to rule that the original.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. So what I wanted is a sense, so we're at the end of all our work, and I don't want to get bogged down procedurally here. I'm looking at the clock. So, the issue, I think, is not just procedural, it's how we want to advance our work as we end. And so, I'm going to leave that discussion on the table for a moment, and I think we are divided about carving out any particular recommendation. That's what I'm hearing. I'm just trying to summarize it as opposed to everything is in the record. I think I'm hearing a consensus, but it's going to be in the record to be posted. So let me finish. Okay, the issue then is can we procedurally place something on the agenda, right, without, on the 18th, if we have a meeting on the 18th, so, we can table this until we decide to meet on the 18th. If we choose not to, then the issue's moot, but everything still is in the record. We can, I can rule that both motions are, we can vote on this and say if 2/3 want this placed on the next agenda. We're not voting on the merits of the item, just whether or not there's a 2/3 interest in putting it on the next meeting. Then we have to decide if we're going to have a next meeting. All right. So what we're trying to work through is A, do we want to carve this out? B, can we do this tonight and suggest it would be on May 18th? Because I've ruled that we're not going to vote on it tonight. So I do think that point of order, Commissioner Ranger, had merit. So that's been withdrawn. So the motion on the floor is to place this item on the May 18th agenda. And then that question's been raised, can we even do that since it hasn't been posted? And I'm saying as chair, I can say we can post this for the next meeting without a vote, depending on whether we have the next meeting. And then in any event, we are going to have it in the record, and I hear you loud and clearly that I will visit with the board as we end our process, which, if it's not tonight, it would be May 18th because we've already canceled the meetings for June. So, but I'm trying to get a sense, we're clearly divided about whether we should advance conceptually specific recommendations or not. The last meeting we decided not to. In this specific set of recommendations, it's been advanced that we ought to, on the 18th, have that vote to carve those out, and specifically, notwithstanding, again, they're all going to be in public, and it's all going to be in the record, to vote whether or not procedurally to carve those out and to hand them over while we're turning over the entire body of our work. I would say that, yes, let me just finish, all right? So I think, I'm trying to summarize where I think we are. We'll take another round because I don't want to, beat this to keep going on with this before I make a definitive ruling. So I'll take one round of comments. I think I've tried to capture the two issues. One, do we want to carve it out? And can we? I think that's the fundamental question given how each of us thinks of this. And then, do we then place it on the 18th? We're not going to vote on it tonight. So I think that's an accurate summary from my perspective as chair. Commissioner Ranger, and then we'll go back around before we try to get closure on this.
We have a posted agenda. And I would ask the chair to consider following the agenda. This is a contradiction of the agenda to make a decision that contradicts the posted item, which is why I agreed with the comment that was made by Commissioner Black. That's the point he was making, a part of the point that he was making. So I'm saying we have an agenda. The next item is discussion of next steps. If you ruled it out of order, we need to proceed to the next item. Then when we get to the decision that's already posted about that meeting,
Right.
if you wish to do something with it after that, but we have a posted agenda.
Yeah, I hear you. Commissioner Eisen, did you want to have the final word before I decide?
No, I was just reading Robert's rules, and there is a provision for changing an existing agenda, but I won't go into that to belabor the point, but a 2/3 vote does allow you to do that.
Right.
I mean, according to the written Robert's
Yeah,
rules.
I understand. I'd rather not take us there, you know.
I'm through. I'm
Okay,
through.
all right. So here's what I'm going to rule, that we are going to move on from this item. We're not going to, I'm putting it in the motion. We're going to get to the 18th and get it on that agenda item. No, everything's on there, and then when we get done with next steps, you'll see, I think, where we're going. So, moving on to the next item, I want to pass out Trustee Midgekay's comments, because though he read them, I think, you know, you wanted, enough of you said you wanted it. I will say, I also, based on the last meeting, visited and thanked Mr. Harris with the tutoring people, and they did not disagree that we need 5,000 tutors. Now, whether this is our only recommendation, given the discussion tonight, is something that, again, will be in the record. We can, in fact, be sure in whatever comments I make to the board on the 28th, recognize Commissioner Midgekay's statement that we seem to feel had much merit. So that's informational. Did ask that we get a copy of it like we did for the superintendent and everyone else, so that we would know that was going on. And next, I've mentioned the website, and under the state law, we have to keep our documents for 6 years. The hot link between our website, which is homerule.commission.com, went down. It is now back up. And so I intend to fully make sure that our trustees understand that if they want the body of knowledge that's been posted, everything is up there, including the educational piece, and the governance piece will go online tomorrow, that get advertised. Now, whether we have one recommendation, as Trustee Midgekay say, clearly we don't have agreement about any recommendations, but I think we can certainly note that his call for 5,000 volunteers for tutoring K through 3 is important, and again, in the record, and his comments are solely duly noted. And third, I want to get back to Commissioner Vesey. He was a member of our governance team, and I think I've asked him to, he wrote some comments, but I'm going to ask him to hold those, because I wanted to go just around the table and see if anyone had, as we near the end here, any comments or things that you wanted to put in the record before we bring the meeting to a close, after we decide on the 18th, of course. So next steps were to either wind this up tonight, depending on the vote on the 18th. I think all the work that the community has given us has been posted. Our own committee report will be posted by tomorrow. Commissioner Vesey's taken the time to share a statement with me, and I told him I would yield the floor because he didn't really, because of his work, have time to participate. But also, if we can be concise, I promise you I'm going to be concise. If you had something you wanted to say, this is open mic time that you haven't said, have at it. I will narrow your block of time. If not, if there's nothing to say, don't say it. And I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable that they've had their opportunity. Did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver.
Well, first of all, if this may be our last meeting, I'm not sure. But I want to thank the other teachers that were on this commission. It's and Stephanie also. It's different when you work with a company and you're on a commission like this. There's always just a little tenuous stress there that's always there under the current. And I believe that it's remarkable that everything has gone as well as it has. And I wanted to also stress that I don't want this to splinter at the end over anything that this commission has done over the year. It's been a strong year. We've done a lot. We've accomplished a lot. And I don't want to see, anything that goes out other than the way it should go out, which is on top. We're, a positive finish, and it needs to feel like a positive finish when we stop. And that's it. Thank you to everyone.
Okay. Commissioner Vesey, I'll give you the floor.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to read this statement because I'm not sure I will be able to attend the last meeting. And, this was a draft in process when my computer sort of crashed through human error on Friday. And it was salvaged by Commissioner Weiss, who had a draft of it, and I really appreciate his help. And my intention with what I've written was just to be able to summarize it mainly for myself, to sort of bring closure to the Commission's work, to acknowledge many of the people that actually presented to us and took the time to come to the meetings, and as a way of kind of understanding what happened the last 12 months as we've gone through this. But I will skip a little bit as we go along, but I'll just read this one thing as quickly as I can. Chapter 12 of the Texas Education Code outlines a process for a community to engage in the creation of a home rule charter. The Dallas Independent School District received the necessary petitions to initiate the process, and the Board of Trustees complied with Chapter 12 and appointed 15-member Home Rule Charter Commission. We were charged with deciding whether a charter school district might offer a more effective, efficient governance structure, accountability system, educational, budget, and finance strategies. We concluded that it would not. Throughout the process of public meetings, listening to interest group presentations and research, commissioners longed to hear compelling reasons why they should consider a charter district. The Commission heard many good ideas, none requiring a charter to adopt. The Commission never heard how a home rule charter district relates to improvement in student achievement. Advocates for home rule did not make a case other than citing 50,000 petition signatures and a framework charter submitted rather late in the discussion process. The Commission never saw a data-backed vision for what Dallas schools would look like in 5 or 10 years under home rule. All presenters to the Commission, pro and anti-home rule, agreed to some extent on the need for growth and change in DISD. No one was satisfied with the status quo. The Commission did hear from the opponents of home rule. Citizens who spoke or presented at general or public meetings ranged from DISD students to senior citizens concerned about public education. Students spoke to the Commission. The Commission was honored and proud to listen to them. Parents wanted to hear about plans for pre-K programs, expansion of magnets, STEM, AP, and pre-AP opportunities. They spoke of not feeling welcome in the schools, wanting more of a voice in school decisions, wanting community schools, and concerns about school safety, discipline, and the pipeline to prison. Teachers spoke about their passion for teaching. They expressed concerns about administrative policies and practices that make teaching harder or more test-oriented, promote a hostile work environment, adoption of performance pay, and demonstrated lack of respect for teaching. Administrators spoke. The superintendent spoke. He said he did not favor home rule. Trustee Morath spoke in favor of a charter. Present and former trustees spoke against it. Citizens spoke both for and against the charter. People spoke about their concerns for the schools, sometimes outside the purview of a charter, but many good ideas were shared. All of the speakers are strong advocates for education. They get the connection between great communities and great public schools. Citizens groups' presentations were extremely helpful to providing perspective on the problem of an 85% poverty rate for Dallas schools. The commission listened to everyone who asked to present to the commission and to every speaker at the public meetings. The commission built an extraordinary public record of comments, a body of testimony that illustrates wide support for our public schools and a focus on improvement. Overwhelmingly, citizens favored keeping and modifying the present system as opposed to a leap into an unproven governance structure. Each commissioner has her or his own views of the effectiveness, transparency, open-mindedness, leadership, commitment, and sincerity of the Home Rule Commission. Each commissioner has her or his own views of what changes need to take place and which priorities rank highest. The commissioners were a snapshot of what Dallas looks like when you gather a group of citizens of good intentions together to do something of public import. They were more educated than the population as a whole. The Commission's vast experience in education, teaching, school district management, board governance, law, pre-K, PTSA, SVDM, parenting students through DISD, helped the Commission separate effective policy from effective advocacy. The Commissioner's first charge under one of the least artful pieces of legislation ever written was to decide whether the DISD should be reformed as a charter school district. The second charge would have been to write such a charter as permitted under the Texas Education Code to be voted on by the citizenry. Early on, Commissioner Weiss dubbed us a listening and learning community. The commissioners, by and large, were neutral in their public demeanor and comments. The Commission, though with some exceptions, did not openly advocate for or against a charter until the listening and the learning, the due diligence phase of the Commission's proceedings, 5 or 6 months into the process, was concluded. The Commissioners, whether for or against Home Rule, have gained a greater understanding of the effect of 85% poverty on Dallas school children. The Commissioners, whether for or against Home Rule, have also gained a greater understanding of the great things that are going on across DISD, despite the challenges. Progress appears to be taking hold in a number of areas, but the schools in the poorest areas continue to languish. Many of the answers to great education for all Dallas school kids are not the kind of answers that you can write into a law. Many of the people who worked for or against the charter already volunteer or support public education in some way. Each of those people needs to recruit 5 more volunteers. The commissioners learned how profound poverty data can be. If a child can get on reading level by 3rd grade, that child is far more likely to graduate from high school. If a child does not graduate from high school, they are far more likely to go to prison. If every person who signed a petition to have a conversation about Home Rule volunteered 1 hour a week to help a child read, we can improve the lives of thousands of children. Many churches are already involved in reading programs at DISD. DISD needs more community support from individuals, businesses, and churches. Injecting our schools with people who care about our children and our city's future is a low-cost, high-yield solution. Modeling citizens who care, who know how to read, and who take a few hours a year to teach someone to read, our children can believe in a life out of poverty. For this to happen, the community must believe in public education and DISD, because the rope that binds us is either a lifeline to less poverty and a better city, or it is a noose. Our activism, our personal experience, is the only thing that will tell us the truth about our local schools. People must go into the schools and do everything possible to improve them. There is simply too much poverty for the school district to solve the problem with tax and bond dollars and the next great educational reform leader. That was never their charge in the first place, but somewhere in history, schools became the last best hope for people in poverty. Our history as a nation is replete with great people who rose from abject poverty through education to successful lives. Dallas has always been a can-do kind of city. That spirit can bring many of our children to the promise of a better life. Dallas isn't the only city to have faced this issue, but Dallas has spent the last 10 months on this Home Rule process studying solutions and appears poised for decisive action. The commission has elected to compile all of the material from presentations, submissions, and public meeting transcripts for future reference by any interested party, rather than to submit a laundry list of recommendations to a school board and administration that are well aware of many of the problems and ideas brought to the commission. In several cases, the commission heard statements calling for new or better programs that the district or the legislature is working on, such as pre-K. The call for the conversation about home rule from the Support Our Schools group has pushed the conversation about schools to a much higher level in the city's consciousness. It was and remains a civic necessity that this conversation continues with respect, creativity, and absolute diligence. SOPS deserves credit for pushing the conversation. As a result of the commission meetings, more people have had the opportunity to voice their concerns and ideas about schools. People are more engaged in their schools, but the need is still great and the time is now. People who now volunteer are from across the spectrum of the city. These volunteers are neighbors who are concerned not just about the education of our children, they're concerned about their tax rates and property values. They're concerned about local control of schools, supporting teachers, crime, administrative and budget waste, a well-educated workforce, quality of life in the community, educational quality, and the future of our city. The commission calls on every citizen, business, and church within the DISD to consider a plan of action to give a few hours a month to help a child learn to read. In the end, if we can engage an educated core of trained volunteers to connect with our most at-risk kids, we will close the achievement gap and begin to defeat poverty.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Hearing no, I know we're gonna, can you say for the next item?
I really need to.
I know, we're gonna get right to it. If there are no other comments under next steps, I just want to do a reminder, everyone's email account, this doesn't apply to the teachers, under our current system is active through June 19th. If you want to deactivate it, please tell Mr. Harris. So that gets us to...
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
can I just make one comment?
Yes, please.
Brief comment.
Yeah.
I would like to thank Commissioner Vesey for what I consider to be an excellent statement of our experience on this commission. I wish I could leave this commission on such a statement without getting into things that will further divide us. But if that is not possible, I endorse and believe that he has extremely accurately and concisely and appropriately described what our experience here has been all about. And I agree and endorse everything he says, and thank him very much for presenting.
I appreciate that. I've told him that privately. He worked hard on it and did not let his computer defeat him. And so I am, as chair, going to leave item 6A on. So let's just be clear about this. So it's a consideration to cancel. So there can be a motion to cancel, which will bring our journey to an end. I have heard everybody's concern that I adequately express to the board, assuming they will meet with me, and I think that's still there, all our work and where to find it. If that fails, then I will call for a meeting on the 18th. I want to give everyone a chance who's present tonight to make that decision rather than pulling the item like I did on our April 20th meeting. So having said that, the chair would entertain a motion to cancel the May 18th meeting. Again, we'll just up and down vote. If you voted if you voted down, that means we will meet on the 18th. All right, is everyone understanding that? Did you understand that?
No,
So a motion to cancel the 18th meeting will be tonight, will be our final meeting. All right? So it's up and down. If you vote that you want a meeting, you'll vote to defeat this motion. All right? Everyone understanding it? So
Means yes and yes means no.
yeah, so
Mr. Chairman, I move that we cancel the May 18th, 2015.
is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Blackburn has moved to cancel the meeting. Who said? Commissioner Ranger seconded. Floor is open for discussion. Okay. No discussion? Then all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand so I can count.
To not have.
To cancel the meeting on the 18th.
To cancel?
To cancel, the motion was, right, to cancel, the motion was, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion carries. Let me just say in my concluding remarks, I have 3 statements. I want to thank you for your service. I want to tell you I was proud to be your chair. And I think I would like all of us just to stand in applause for Dino Harris, where this would not have happened without him in May. Okay. I've told you repeatedly, and my very last comment is, it's turn out the lights, the commission's over. Time to say goodbye.
I have a question.
Yes,
Dino, when do you want the telephones and the other district equipment turned into you?
By June 19th.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
President,
Yes, sir.
just one question. On the website,
Yes.
did they ever post the commission's decision we made in January?
Yeah.
I never saw it on the website.
I would defer, I'm pretty sure it was Commissioner Harris. Listen to me, Mr. Harris.
Try to make sure I can do it.
That's okay, that's okay. Let's
We will conform every document.
I'm talking.
All right. Meeting's adjourned at 7:45.
We do.
I just did.
Okay, so move to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. Seconded by Isaac Freeman.
That's very good.
All they do.
All right.